Claire Nash of Nash19, how are you?
Very good.
It's great to have you here. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for inviting me.
How long, and this is a very undiplomatic question, have you been running Nash19?
I've been running Nash19 for 25 years.
So you started when you were 6?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Came home from Atlanta, Georgia, decided I'd like a premises in my area of business, be it accommodation or restaurant, and possibly like it in Cork City. Found Princess Street, developed it out onto Marlborough Street, and hey ho, 25 years later.
You're still there?
Yeah.
Talk to me about the decision to open it, because it wouldn't have been the best time to open a restaurant.
No, it was just
coming to the end of the recession before last.
That's right, and I was acutely aware of it, having lived in Atlanta. I was in the private country club business, had studied hotel and restaurant management here, had worked for all my life really in the industry since I was 13. I had been working here, but and always in and out of like very fine establishments or people with huge passion for the business. And I thought if I came home, I possibly would open my own business. I'm from Limerick originally, which suits in Cork at times, it has to be said.
You don't really proclaim that too loudly. That's the first time I've ever heard you admit it publicly.
Yeah, I haven't said that probably. But it is nice to be from Limerick and to come down to Cork and be so welcomed. My father hurled in Cork and played football with St. Nick's. So I had this kind of almost, like a blanket feeling when I opened here, and I just didn't even know what it was because my father had been killed 2 years before. But they really looked after me when I came down. It wasn't a badgering. It was just a hand on me, really, minding me. So I opened very young, ridiculous, no inhibitions, away I went. And I thought I'd like to trade at daytime only, because I had done the late nights, I'd done the split shifts. Our industry was notorious for wearing you out. And I mean, you turned to alcohol, or there wasn't anything like the gym craze that's on now, or looking after yourself. But invariably, if you had staff that were on split shifts, it just wasn't a life for them.
And it was unusual to try and open a restaurant that just did daytime hours.
It was very unusual, but it was huge in the States. So I had seen the models work. We got up very early in the mornings. We were open at 7:30. I think we're the first restaurant to open in the city. I now know a couple of them do open, but I even remember I was going to do top-ups, and Patrick Bewley, who's still alive and well, and Bewley's Coffee, he rang me to say, I believe you're doing free top-ups. I don't think you can do that.
Right.
Excuse
why
me.
couldn't you do
Patrick Bewley? I'll do that if I want. But because it just wasn't heard of in Ireland. So I'd bought all my little notions back from the States. I had done an awful lot of training here, and I just thought, if I can make it work during the day, I will. And
you're still doing the free top-ups?
Yeah.
Yeah, still going. You've traded through difficult times for the city, because you have, it's almost biblical. You've traded through floods. We're still waiting for the plague, but you've also had huge financial ups and downs in the wider economy that impacted on the number of people coming through your door. Yeah. Describe to me the roller coaster.
Well, we opened and we were certainly very new and young, and what we were doing was quite unusual in that we cooked on site. I was always an advocate of my produce being really good, getting my hands on the best I could at the time. And I mean, there wasn't even a baker that you could have bought in decent, we'll say, sourdough bread or yeast breads at the time. So we were trying to do everything ourselves. And as the whole evolution of food started, as I would nearly call it, Irish food started to take on a whole new look. And I mean, Irish food is very, very high up there now. It's very, it's one of our biggest industries, and I linked myself to it and held on to my producers. So therefore I had a wider circle of team really, rather than just my focus of staff. So we came out of the back of a recession, so we were going to do well anyway, hopefully, and we did, and we started to do extremely well. And then the Celtic Tiger kicked in, and it actually, to be honest, I wonder, was it more difficult trading through the Celtic Tiger or the recession? I'm not quite sure.
Why so? What was different about the Celtic Tiger?
Because the Celtic Tiger was breeding a very demanding client, a client that would be rattling, their wallets at you. They thought that they had loads of money, so loads of money demanded more. Now, we were trying to provide a standard of excellence anyway, so we weren't certainly going to just be serving champagne and oysters. we were just maintaining our standard. We were, you know, we never went crazy putting up our prices. So then when the recession came, it was very hard to manage. You know, I wasn't able to cut off anything. I didn't want to cut off my quality. I'm really glad I didn't now. But it was just the boom of the recession, like the management of people
And
was hard, you know.
When we talk about the recession, you're obviously based between Oliver Plunkett Street and the South Mall. So, but the South Mall in particular, you could almost see
layers of the onion coming off.
Yeah,
oh
and like, what was that like watching that? Because you're obviously you're part priest as well, because you hear the confessions coming through the door. You knew it was going to be bad, didn't you?
Well, I saw it from the Christmas of 2007. I saw it back in October, because we used to have a very, very big hamper offering. We cooked an awful lot of people's dinners, and it was just because people were really busy. Maybe they were lazy, maybe they weren't able. But I just saw a bit of a skim off starting, and then the credit cards, the bills were ginormous. You know, our Visa machine would have normally been half our taking, and that Christmas it flipped to kind of 80%.
So everything was not being spent in cash, it was put on credit.
And it was a real, like, I just knew there was something. I felt it. And then there was a couple of places closed, and there was hardship stories coming in the door. And my clients that I'd looked after for years turned into something, you know, my God, like they were just in shocking form. They had to be looked after, they were getting sick. I firmly believe that there's still a group of us that the warts haven't come out in yet, you know. And you and I had this discussion about it, because we had worked solidly for a good 20 years, a lot of us. We didn't deserve the kicking we got, really. You know, the older group, we'd say those in their 60s now, got a way out of it. The younger ones never had it, so they only had the boom. So they hadn't had this recession, or they were too young to have felt it. They hadn't started working.
And too young to deal with it.
Yeah, they were. But at the same time, I mean, you know, it's all like every day is another day in there. We were initially, I suppose my model would have been trading on the lovely coffee tradition that is in Cork. And if you are meeting somebody, you at that point, you never met in your office, because you had no nice facilities like here.
Yeah.
You would meet in a coffee shop, or you would meet, and like there was very few of us. It was just bars, or, you know, the very few coffee shops or cafes.
If it's a hotels or whatever.
Yeah. And so, you know, it was easy for me to fill that niche, and I would be packed with, you know, as people call in Cork, suits. And then I saw the shoppers starting to find me, and, you know, we'd be a destination for a lot of Kerry, West Cork, Limerick, Waterford. An awful lot of people would find us for their lunch when they're on shopping trips. So thank God for that, because
they kept you going.
I was able to balance with that, you know. And then, of course, UCC would be very big customers of ours, you know.
Yeah. Your involvement in the Cork Business Association, it's almost a political role. I mean, do you enjoy the cut and thrust of all of that?
Well, I like to know what's going on in the city, and I like to know why things have happened. And if I come into the city very early in the morning and there's a problem, or something has happened during the night that hasn't been alerted yet, you know, I'm wondering, why is this happening? Years ago, I'd be thinking, for God's sake, I've paid my rates. Why isn't my rubbish picked up? Or there's a flood there, or there's a window broken. So I just started probably knocking on the door of City Council. I got invited to join the association. I went on their committee board, and then I'm now actually one of the directors. I had 2 terms as president of CBA. I was very young the first time, and then we were going right through. It was at the end of the recession, and CBA, like anything, was also going through a rough time, because there's very little good news stories. Owen O'Callaghan, God rest him, died this year, and James O'Sullivan also passed away. They were, to me, the godfathers of the city. I mean, Owen O'Callaghan's influence was palpable. He'd walk into my restaurant, I'd know he was in to talk to me about something, or else he was in it entertaining. It wouldn't matter, but you just felt that if you were, you know, well, for me, being in the Business Association, I have a very close link to the city. I have a direct line to the directors. I can pick up the phone at, you know, at any stage. I served my time on the board of Opera House, and that was through Joe Gavin. At the time, rang me and said, Claire, it's time that you stepped up now and did something for us. So an awful lot of this, like, people will criticise, will say, or have a go of, oh, for God's sake, look at her, she's always in the paper, or look at Pat O'Connell now, he never stops. But what they don't realise is that...
Pat O'Connell never does stop,
no,
though. Let's just put that out there.
But that we are actually working our massive day. Retail is huge, and, you know, and there's huge commitment of time. But then you are out at the meeting, you have to be as sharp as a tick that night you might be going on to some other function, you'd be out to the chain gang, as I used to call them, or, you know, as they're called. And yes, I did enjoy it. I do enjoy it, but you could only do so long.
You mentioned two people that I was extremely fond of myself there, James and Owen, both of whom passed away in the last 12 months. And it's sad that they don't see the Cork and the confidence that's there now, because I think that, you know, the Cork that they would have left would have been one that had potential but hadn't realised it yet. Now that the baton's been passed on to the next generation, do you think, what do you think they would have made of all the plans and everything that's happening now and all the potential that's there?
I think, especially for Owen, he was very close to realising what is happening now, you know, because an awful lot of it were his plans. And O'Callaghan Properties are driving on with their, those properties that they had considered to do what they're doing. You know, they will really look after that end of the city now until start pushing out. But the one awful thing, and I only said it the other day, was such a shame that Owen O'Callaghan didn't get the event centre built. And that was one crazy year of that the city became very angsty, and, you know, and you couldn't talk to Jeremani, who was, you know, doing the whole review of it, and it's still not built. And it is really, Jonathan, what we have hung on for, you know. We want and we need that to open. Just one day there, Páirc Creeve had a concert at night. What was on it?
That was the match. There was the quarter.
Was it? Yes. Yeah. And it was on there at 5:30 or something. The city was just, I mean, moving with people, with goodwill, with buzz, and that's what we need. I mean, that corner up there now really needs to be, something has to happen, and it's quite political now, and it's quite sour.
I want to finish up by talking about the temperature on the Mall now again, because you saw it coming in 2006, 2007, 2008. What's the temperature like now?
I think it's fab. So I come over Parliament Bridge, look left, there was dereliction nearly there. They're all renovated, from Ernest Cantelan's right down. The Crawford is going into the gorgeous Anglo building, or I mean the College of Art. That'll be just amazing. Hopefully event centre behind it, then come across the Mall, and all the young auctioneers. Do you notice, like, they were planted all over the city, they were dispersed, let's say, all over the city. It's now just a strip of young, vibrant girls and guys that are, you know, they're working the Mall again. The Imperial is fabulous. I think it's. I met John Flynn the other night, and I just said, John, like, you're up to where you should be. I mean, that is that's a jewel in the crown there on the Mall. We had the long table dinner on the 18th of June, and there was 420 guests in it. And it just, you know, as you just looked up and down, you saw more and more of the buildings occupied. I still think if I was to live in the city, I'd do owner-operator. I would live above my shop.
Would you? Even all the noise?
I would
all the nightclubs?
At night. Sure, there's nothing happening like that on the Mall. Wouldn't it be stunning? A bit like they do in, like, Fitzwilliam Square.
Yeah, which is where they live very happily.
Yeah.
So the temperature is good and healthy.
It is.
I have to ask you the last question. When are the mince pies out? Because I'm still waiting. You know, it's been a long time.
Well, it's funny now. The mince will be made this month.
Good.
It'll be left to cure. And if we start them, if you had them every day, Jonathan, you wouldn't want them.
I'd also be very,
so the first mince pies
every day.
will definitely be, I'd say, the last week in November.
Last week in November. I'll hold you to that. Okay. Claire Nash of Nash19, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jonathan.